Hi, good morning to all of you. So, today let us start once again. We were discussing about world history and today we'll continue with the topic. And in the class yesterday we began to discuss about the Second World War. In Second World War we also began to discuss about the consequences of this war. And just to recapitulate briefly, clear, we discussed about the beginning of or rather establishment of a global institution in form of the United Nations organization. We also discussed about some specialized agencies and organs within United Nations like the Security Council. We also discussed about Security Council. We also discussed about Trusteeship Council, and all these were established to maintain global peace and security. The Trusteeship Council ensured decolonization of Asia and Africa. We had discussed about the decolonization of large number of countries in Asia and Africa from European powers like Britain, France, and Netherlands. Clear? At the same time, we also began to discuss about the development related to Cold War. Second World War was followed by the phenomena of Cold War, in which all paraphernalias of war existed without actual fighting. And just because all paraphernalias of war existed without actual fighting, without actual fighting, it resulted into the phenomena of Cold War. Clear? In this phenomena of Cold War, first of all, European continent got divided into Eastern and Western halves. Along with European continent, Germany got divided into East and West Germany, and the capital city of Germany, Berlin, got divided into East and West Berlin through a concrete wall known as the Berlin Wall. And in fact, Berlin Wall became the greatest representative of the Cold War phenomena. Clear? This development took place at the same time. The phenomena of Cold War was manifested not only in Europe, the phenomena of Cold War got manifested in other parts of the world as well. In fact, the first major region in which this phenomena was manifested was China. And this phenomena got manifested in China during the second phase of Chinese Civil War that started between Chiang Kai-shek on the one hand and the communist leader Mao Zedong. And we had discussed how Mao Zedong, with his Maoist philosophy, became popular, and Mao Zedong was able to defeat Chiang Kai-shek, who fled to the region of Taiwan, which was proclaimed by United States as an independent country known as Republic of China, whereas the mainland China was proclaimed to be the People's Republic of China with its capital at Beijing in 1949. And the successful Communist Revolution of China is still considered to be the greatest defeat of United States in contemporary world. Clear? Till this point we had discussed in the class yesterday. Today we'll start about what major developments in the era of Cold War took place and ultimately how come the Cold War era came to an end at global level. Clear? It's clear. Anything to be asked? Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Is it fine? Clear? So, shall we start from here? So, we'll start from this point. Is it fine? Clear? So, Cold War politics. Clear? So, again, apart from this, just understand, clear, the next major crisis in the era of Cold War that took place was related to Korean crisis. And before we start Korean crisis, I'll let you know, do understand all these crises clearly, because all these developments that took place in post Second World War era is related to international politics and international relations even till contemporary times. So all these issues will enable you to understand properly the background of international politics and relations in contemporary world. Clear? So after Chinese Revolution, the next major manifestation of Cold War took place in the Korean Peninsula, leading to the Korean crisis. Clear? So we'll discuss about the Korean crisis. Started from 1950 and continued till 1953. We'll understand about Korean Peninsula. Clear? Just understand about this region. Clear? After the end of Second World War, Korean Peninsula attracted the attention of global leaders. The reason being that in the northern part of Korean Peninsula, the people began to support communist philosophy, whereas people in the southern part of Korean Peninsula, they began to support capitalist ideology. Clear? Just because of this development only, Korean Peninsula got divided along an artificial boundary which is known as the 38th parallel. So 38th parallel even now is the political demarcation between North Korea and South Korea. In southern part of Korea, the capitalist ideology pursued that led to the establishment of democratic government. But at the same time, clear, in the northern part of Korean Peninsula, communist regime was established which was not acceptable to United States. Clear? Since was not acceptable to United States at this time. Clear? United States wanted to take radical action against communist leaders in North Korea. But at this time only, United Nations prohibited United States from taking action against North Korea. And not only this, India came forward and for the first time provided peacekeeping force to the United Nations Security Council. Now, do understand, it's very important. Clear? United Nations Security Council was established to maintain peace and stability all across the world, and at the same time it did not have its own standing army, but it was made clear that all member countries should provide its military contingent to Security Council to be known as United Nations Peacekeeping Force, also known as International Peacekeeping Force. Clear? And India for the first time provided large peacekeeping force to the Security Council, and with this military force only, United Nations prohibited United States from taking any action against North Korea. Clear? So North Korean regime survived. Clear? Until now, North Korea is under communist ideology and considered to be an arch rival of United States. So obviously, all these developments of post-Second World War era had direct consequences on the phenomena of contemporary politics. We'll write about this Korean Peninsula, Korean crisis. Right, introduction first. Clear? Right. After the end of the Second World War, after the end of the Second World War, end of the Second World War, Korean Peninsula became highly controversial. Korean Peninsula became highly controversial. Korean Peninsula became highly controversial. Became highly controversial. Became highly controversial as people in the northern part, people in the northern part, people in the northern part. Hello. So Korean Peninsula became, the people in the northern part of Korea began to support communism, whereas people in the southern part, people in the southern part began to support capitalist philosophy, began to support capitalist philosophy, support capitalist philosophy. Right. This created a situation of civil war. This created a situation of civil war, and Korean Peninsula was divided along, and Korean Peninsula was divided along the 38th parallel, divided along the 38th parallel into into North Korea and South Korea. Into North Korea or North Korea and South Korea. South Korea. Clear? South Korea. Like the people in South Korea, the people in South Korea supported the establishment of democratic government, supported the democratic government, establishment of democratic government. But in people in North Korea established the communist regime. Okay? Right. United States decided to take military action. United States decided to take military action against the communist regime of North Korea. That led to a serious crisis. That led to a serious crisis. Clear? Right. At this critical time, several countries, including India, provided peacekeeping force, to the Security Council, peacekeeping force to the Security Council and United Nations prohibited United States against any military action. Clear? Right. In this way, the Korean crisis was resolved. And communist regime in North Korea survived. Communist regime in North Korea survived. Even now. And that is why it is considered to be totally against United States. If you understand all this phenomena, it will become very easy to understand the dynamics of contemporary politics at global level. So this was Korean crisis, which was another manifestation of Cold War politics after Second World War. Clear? Much more serious than Korean crisis was another crisis, regional crisis that took place in the Cold War era, and that was in form of the Suez Canal crisis. Very prominent crisis. We'll come to this crisis known as the Suez Canal crisis. Clear? Now, what was this Suez Canal crisis? We'll understand. Suez Canal crisis that exactly took place in the year 1956. The Suez Canal crisis. Clear? Before we come to Suez Canal crisis, first of all, we'll understand what is Suez Canal all about and why it is very important even in contemporary times. Before we move on to discuss about this crisis, we'll take some questions. Clear? Now, question has been asked first of all by Shubham. So, what's the difference between communism and communalism? Yeah, it was asked yesterday also. Sir said yesterday this question will be discussed today. Clear? So, what is the difference between communism and communalism? Clear? Okay, yeah, this was asked yesterday only. So we'll discuss about this term communism. There are two terms, communism, and there's another term known as communalism. No, difference. We have to discuss entirely different terms. Clear? Communism and communalism. First of all, we discuss this question. Then the second question from Vishwajit. Sir, is Taliban fascist or communist? We'll come to that. Don't worry. Clear? So first of all, communism and communalism. Now just understand first. Clear? We had discussed about the concept of communism, whereby we had made it clear that the ideology of communism means that it is the highest stage of socialism, whereby resources of a nation or a region has been equitably distributed among all the sections, and therefore a classless or a stateless society comes into being, where every person is satisfied and complete peace and stability prevails. Clear? So communism is an ideology whereby the resources of a nation or a territory is properly distributed among all the sections. Since it is distributed equitably among all the sections of society, clear? Obviously it results into perfect ideal society, and this ideal society is considered to be very important, and it is the highest stage of socialism. So stateless concept, classless concept. Clear? So communism means a stateless society, also classless society. Marked by complete equality. Clear? These are two major manifestations of communism, the highest stage of socialism. Clear? But on the other hand, what do we mean by the term communalism? Clear? Now communalism, just understand. Clear? Normally we perceive in contemporary times that communalism is a phenomena that divides the people along religious lines. That is, communal clashes that take place in India, or communal ideology that is propagated in India, that creates the concept of religious divide between Hindus and Muslims, religious divide between Muslims and Christians, religious divide between Hindus and Sikhs. Clear? So this communalism is a phenomena whereby there is a divide created among religious communities. Clear? But one thing that must be taken care. Clear? Do understand the concept clearly. Communalism has nothing to do with religion. Clear? Communalism has nothing to do with religion. Do understand the concept. Clear? Communism is a pure political and social concept. Communalism is a pure social concept, not political. Clear? And why, when we say, what do we mean that communalism has nothing to do with religion? Clear? It has been explained by scholars in different parts of the world that communalism is a phenomena of creating divide in society by emphasizing on only one criteria of differentiation. Do understand clearly, in any country, in any society, people are identified on the basis of different criteria. Clear? The criteria of identification could be gender. The criteria for differentiation could be educational qualification, professional ability. It could also be regional criteria. It could also be other criteria like dressing pattern or food habits. Clear? So a person can be identified on different criteria like caste, class, religion, region, food habits, and other criteria, education qualification. Clear? But among all these criteria, if anyone overemphasizes only on the criteria of religion to divide the section, then this assumes the form of communalism. Clear? So communalism is a phenomena whereby only religious identity is overemphasized to create religious differences in society. Clear? Differentiation can be done on criteria of race also, criteria of caste also, criteria of professional qualification also, criteria of economic prosperity also. But when anyone emphasizes only on criteria of religion, which is overemphasized, it leads to division of society, and thus such divisions known as communalism in society. Clear? So communalism has nothing to do with religion. There are many people who are strictly religious in their personal life, but when they step out in public life, they prove to be completely secular. The best example being Mahatma Gandhi, the best example being Maulana Abul Kalam Azad. Both were very religious in their personal life, but in public life they were proved to be completely secular in nature. Clear? So obviously one thing that needs to be understood is that when, apart from several criteria, when religious criteria is overemphasized to give identification to a certain section, it results into divide known as communal divide or communalism. This is the difference between communism and communalism. Communism, in fact, is an ideal philosophy. Communalism is basically a negative aspect. Clear? So one is a positive ideology, another is a negative ideology, whereby division of society is done only on the criteria of religion. Is the difference between communism and communalism clear? Shubham, please respond, because this is conceptual topic and I want that conceptually you all need to be very sound. This is the very purpose of class. Please respond, Shubham. Is the difference clear? And all of you also, clear? Is the difference clear between communism and communalism? Communalism is basically overemphasis on one criteria. It can be religious criteria also, normally identified, overemphasis on one criteria for social division. It's clear difference between communism and communalism. Okay, fine. Next question, Bishwajit. Sir, is Taliban fascist or communist? Again, I'll let you know. Clear? Taliban forces are forces that emerged as a basically Taliban. Taliban is neither fascist force nor communist force. Then what is Taliban? Clear? I'll let you know. Just understand, it's very important. Clear? All these are very conceptual things, and I do appreciate these questions are really good. Clear? I do appreciate and thank to all of you that I'm getting some good questions from your batch. Clear? And therefore I need to discuss these questions, and very important. Clear? First of all, I'll let you know Taliban. Very valid question that has been asked by Vishwajit. Taliban that largely operate in Afghanistan and to some extent even in Pakistan as well. Is Taliban a fascist or communist? First of all, do understand. Clear? Taliban is neither fascist nor communist. Clear? Because Taliban does not believe in establishing a totalitarian state like fascism, nor communist because they don't want to establish a stateless society. Clear? So obviously Taliban cannot be declared as fascist because they don't want to establish a totalitarian state, even though they want to establish a state. And since they want to establish a state, obviously they cannot be termed as communist as well. Clear? Then who are Taliban? What is the designation given to them? Clear? Taliban is designated as, or Taliban has been accepted as, a group known as insurgent or insurgency group. Clear? Now what do we mean by insurgent group or insurgency group? Clear? Now just understand. Clear? Insurgent group or insurgency is defined as a rebellion by the civilian people primarily to dislodge the existing government. Clear? So insurgent group are those groups that comprises of common people of the same region who wants to dislodge the existing government and to establish their own government. Clear? They are known as insurgent group. Taliban are insurgent group who wanted to eliminate the rule of government of Afghanistan and to establish their own regime known as Taliban regime. And of late, they have succeeded in Afghanistan and they have dethroned the government and established their own regime known as Taliban regime. So Talibans are declared to be insurgent group. Clear? Insurgent groups are those groups who are basically civilian people who have taken up arms in order to dethrone the government and to establish their own regime. Clear? This is known as Taliban insurgency, Taliban regime. Clear? In the northeastern part of India also witnessed large number of insurgent groups who want to dismantle the government and establish their own regime. Clear? And here only I'll discuss insurgent groups are totally different from the terrorist group. Clear? Terrorism and insurgency are totally different concept. Clear? So insurgent group is totally different from terrorist group or terrorism. Clear? Now what is the difference between insurgency and terrorism? Clear? terrorist group. Clear? Terrorist means that they are the people who does not want to dismantle the government of one country. Clear? That the terrorism is a global phenomena whereby they want to dismantle the global regime and to establish Islamic affinity or Islamic brotherhood. Clear? So terrorism is more lethal in concept, which goes beyond the boundaries, unlike the insurgency group. And terrorism believes in dismantling the international regime in order to establish the rule of one religion, mainly Islamic radicalization. They are known as terrorist group. Clear? So insurgency and terrorism are two different things. Insurgency is not a threat to global peace and security because it is confined to a specific region, but terrorism is a potential threat to global peace and security because terrorism operates at global level to dismantle the existing regime and to establish Islamic regime at global level. There is a difference between insurgency and terrorism. Is the clear? So Taliban is neither fascist nor communist. Talibans are basically insurgent groups or insurgents. Is clear, Bishwadit? Very important question, very valid question. I hope that you have understood the difference between insurgency and terrorism. Al Qaeda, example also, Taliban is an insurgent group and Afghanistan only. Al Qaeda is a terrorist group. That is why members of Al Qaeda attacked United States in 2001. Clear? They don't believe in boundaries. They want to have international ramification. So terrorist group is Al Qaeda, insurgent group is Taliban. And Taliban and Al Qaeda are totally different. Clear? Because even though both have emerged from one group known as Al Mujahideen. Clear? So Taliban has also emerged from Al Mujahideen. Al Qaeda has also emerged from Al Mujahideen. But Taliban is basically insurgent group confined only to Afghanistan. Al Qaeda is a terrorist group that has ramifications at global level. Is this clear? Bishwajit. In fact, all of you, in fact, I want this concept to be very clear. Now, coming to another question, clear. What is the difference between communism and fascism? Vidisha Sarkar. See, we had discussed difference between communism and fascism. Communism prescribes a stateless society, that is without any state having complete equality, and fascism ensures complete control of a state, that is totalitarian state. So both are antithesis to each other. So communism is an ideology that wants to establish a stateless and a classless society, and fascism is an ideology that wants to establish powerful state, in fact totalitarian state. Clear? So one supports complete establishment of state, another prescribes complete absence of state. Clear? So communism and fascism are antithesis to each other, even though both emerged from a common ideology known as socialism. We had discussed that elaborately. Is it clear, Bidisha? Coming to another question by Spandan Roy. Why ideologies of Mao Zedong became internal threat for India, though there are so many other ideologies exist in India. See, the ideology of Mao Zedong became internal threat for India, especially after post-independent era, because we had discussed this ideology. Mao Zedong asked the peasantry class to take up arms, even arms are given against the state, in order to ensure equal distribution of agricultural property. Clear? And that is why during Great March in China, the peasantry class, they defeated large number of warlords and they began to acquire control over means of production. Clear? At the same time, just because this happened at this time, clear, in post-independent era also, peasants were not given proper right. Land reforms failed in post-independent era, and that is why peasants began to follow Maoist ideology, radical ideology, to take up arms even against the state, and that resulted in the phenomena known as Naxal ideology that started from Bengal only, from the village of Naxalbari, given by Charu Majumdar and Kanu Sanyal. Clear? So Naxalism became the greatest internal threat for India just because of Maoist philosophy. So Mao Zedong's philosophy became a major internal threat for India in post-independent era. It's clear? Peacekeeping. Next question, sir. Which country is the largest contributor to the UN peacekeeping force in context of number of forces? Swagatam. Clear? Again, I'll let you. India has been one of the largest provider of peacekeeping force to United Nations. In fact, India had been providing large peacekeeping force, but off and on the position keeps on changing. Of late, Bangladesh has become to be the largest provider of peacekeeping force. At some times back, Nigeria became the largest provider of peacekeeping force. But India is one of the largest provider of peacekeeping force. As of late, Bangladesh and Nigeria are the largest provider of peacekeeping force to United Nations just because of their dense population. It's clear. Now coming to another question by Tista. Sir, The group fighting for Balochistan and Houthi rebels in Yemen can also be termed as insurgent group. Yeah, most of them are insurgent group because they want regime change in their own country. So they are come as insurgent group. So what is the difference between insurgents and militants? Parth, clear? See, insurgents and militants, again I'll let you know, clear? Insurgents are basically the people who have the grievances confined to the same country. Like, for instance, Naga insurgency in India, northeastern part of India. So Naga insurgency is an internal problem of India, and it has resulted because of internal disturbances. Clear? But militants are those groups who are sponsored and supported by other countries. Clear? They become militants, like basically Kashmiri militants. Why we call them militants? Because obviously they are supported and they are sponsored by government of Pakistan. Then we had Sikh militancy in Punjab, largely supported and sponsored by Pakistan. Clear? So those groups within India who are sponsored and supported by foreign country, they are known as militants. Clear? And insurgent groups are those groups who are local people within India having certain grievances, and therefore with these grievances they want to dismantle the government without any foreign support. Clear? So difference between insurgency and militants are with respect to foreign support. It's clear, Parth. Clear. Now coming to another question, Subrata. What was the main reason behind the conflict between US and North Korea? The main reason was ideological conflict. United States wanted more and more countries to adopt capitalism, and United States wanted to stop communism. Clear? And since North Korea supported communism, it was not acceptable to United States, and United States wanted to dismantle the communist regime in North Korea just because to maintain higher balance of power in its favor. Clear? Sir, what is Warsaw Pact? Clear? Again, we'll come to Warsaw Pact. Clear? But again, I'll let you hear only what is Warsaw Pact. Clear? When Cold War started to take place, clear? All the capitalist countries led by United States, they established their own military organization known as NATO. Clear? NATO was established in 1949 as a military wing of the capitalist countries. Clear? And NATO was established at Brussels, Belgium, and all capitalist countries decided to promote the military contingent in order to promote capitalism and to check communism. In order to counter NATO, clear, the communist countries established the Warsaw Pact. Warsaw located in Poland, Warsaw Pact, and it was established in the year 1955. Clear? So Warsaw Pact was the military arrangement of the communist countries to counter NATO. With the end of Cold War, Warsaw Pact has come to an end, but NATO still continued to exist even till contemporary times under the guidance of United States. Clear? So this is Warsaw Pact and NATO. It's clear. Next question. Sir, in few days ago, Manipur, they were fight in its insurgent group. Yeah, largely but it was mostly because of religious issues also, and also because of the issue of reservation. It was basically Metis tribe and the Kukis. Clear? It was largely related to reservation issues. Clear? Because obviously they wanted, or some section wanted reservation, which was denied, and therefore it resulted to conflict between Kukis and the Metis groups in Manipur. It was largely an internal problem, not to change the government altogether. It was against the government policies, clear, not to dismantle the government altogether, and it was largely related to issue of reservation and religious differences. Manipur, clear? Clear, sir. Tista clear. Sir, in communism, does police and military exist? Vidisha Sarkar. Obviously, if a state is not there, what is the need to have police and military? Clear? If a state is a stateless society, police and government and police and military is maintained by the state. But if the state is not there, what is the need to have military and police? It's a stateless society, completely equal in nature. People look after law and order themselves, and therefore there is no need to have military and police. Vidisha, clear? Sir, how Truman Doctrine is responsible for Cold War? Madan, clear? See, Truman Doctrine was given by US President Harry S. Truman, clear? Where Harry S. Truman wanted to promote capitalism and to check communism. In fact, he used the term to contain communism. Containing communism means to checking the expansion of communism, and guided by Truman Doctrine only, Marshall Plan was advocated, whereby financial support was to be given to Western European countries in order to develop them, in contrast to Eastern European countries which were under communist influence. Truman, clear, sir. Sir, could you briefly discuss India's demand for permanent membership in UN Security Council? We'll come to that in international relations, don't worry, clear. Anyway, we have to discuss about the biggest diplomatic aspiration of India to get a permanent membership in United Nations Security Council. Biggest diplomatic aspiration. It's clear all the questions. There were several questions, and believe me, the questions are really good. Clear? I do appreciate because the questions has got depth. Clear? And I appreciate these questions, especially the questions related to insurgency and terrorism. It's fine. Okay, now coming to back, clear? We were just supposed to start about Suez Canal crisis, clear? So we'll discuss about Suez Canal crisis that took place in 1956. First of all, we'll understand what is this region all about, just to appreciate its importance, clear? Appreciate its importance. See, just understand this. Suez Canal is here, clear? This is African continent, clear? This is Asian continent, this is Israel, clear? Suez Canal is located here that connect two water bodies, that is the Red Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. It connects two countries, Egypt from Africa and Israel on other side, clear? So these two are basically the map, clear? Map of Suez Canal. To be more clear, images, map. This is Suez Canal, clear? Connecting Egypt on the one hand and other countries on the other hand. Panama Canal, Suez Canal. See, you will understand from here, clear? This place is Suez Canal. I'll mark this place. This is Suez Canal. This region of Suez Canal. Connecting the Mediterranean Sea with the Red Sea. This is Red Sea. And connecting Africa with Egypt, Africa with Asia. Shortest route to connect Asia and Africa. Otherwise, all European countries had to cover this large region. Clear? So all European countries needed to cover this region, then to reach this region, it provided direct region to reach this region. Otherwise, they had to cover the whole region to cover Asia and Africa. Shortest route. Now, what was the issue in Suez Canal? We'll understand. Some other questions, okay? Sir, Gandhiji also prescribed the stateless society. How is it different from communism? Yeah. Mahatma Gandhi also prescribed the stateless society, but different from communism, because Mahatma Gandhi never wanted stateless society to be established through revolution. That is, revolution always involving violence and movement. Mahatma Gandhi wanted establishment of a Ram Raj, that is completely a without any state or superstructure, that with peaceful motive, peaceful objective, movement. Clear? So no violence, no revolution. Mahatma Gandhi also wanted to establish a stateless society that he called as Ram Raj, but with pure peaceful method, not through violence or revolution. Clear? And his concept of Ram Raj was different from stateless, because he was not supposed to move from socialism to communism. He directly wanted to move to Ram Raj through peaceful initiative. This is the difference between Gandhiji's objective of stateless society and stateless promoted by communism. Sir, in Pakistan, there were military or establishment control elected government like the Dami. Then which type of government is run in Pakistan? See, government in Pakistan is purely guided by Sharia law, Islamic law, clear. And this Islamic law is the major part, is the major this Islamic law is the major dividing policy is the major dividing policy followed clear. At the same time, Pakistan has also maintained several military coup, COUP, military coup, whereby democratic gully government has been eliminated and military regime has been established, clear. So if we talk about Pakistan, clear, Pakistan even though have an elected government, but this government has been suppressed many times and military regime has been established in Pakistan, clear. This is okay. Next question. Is the question clear? Okay, there's another question. What was the significance of Prague Spring? Shreyasi. See, Prague Spring took place in the year 1968. It was basically a mass protest in Czechoslovakia. It was a mass protest in Czechoslovakia in order to support socialist ideology, and that had huge impact on other countries of Balkan region. This is known as Prague Spring, where a socialist revolution began to be promoted from Czechoslovakia, and then from Czechoslovakia it affected all the Balkan countries in the era of Cold War, which was against the interest of Western European countries. Clear? Now coming to Suez Canal. Now just understand, clear? What was the issue from the beginning? Suez Canal is a region located on the northeastern side of Egypt. Clear? In the northeastern region of Egypt. Clear? In the northeastern region of Egypt. Clear? This region is very important because it provides the shortest sea route to get connected with Asia and Africa, because it has Mediterranean Sea on the one hand, Red Sea on the other hand. Clear? By the middle of the 19th century, Egypt was ruled by a class of rulers. Clear? They were known as Pasha rulers. Clear? So Pasha rulers ruled over Egypt. Clear? And these Pasha rulers, they wanted to construct several projects in Egypt, but since they didn't have resources, clear, obviously they needed some support as well. Clear? Pasha rulers realized that they also wanted to construct regular shipping canal in Egypt or in the region of Suez Canal. Clear? And for this, the Pasha rulers floated an international shipping company in the market known as Suez Canal Company. This company was floated in the year 1859 in order to take resources from international market. Clear? Maximum number of shares of Suez Canal Company were purchased by Britain and France. Clear? Since Britain and France purchased the maximum number of equity shares, they became the owners and the partners in Suez Canal Shipping Company. Clear? With huge amount of resources taken from international market from Britain and France, Pasha rulers constructed the Suez Canal, and Suez Canal started its regular shipping from 1869. Clear? So from 1869, regular shipping started, and it was highly beneficial for Britain and France for trading activities with Asia and Africa. So regular shipping started from 1869 that largely benefited Britain and France. Clear? After the end of Second World War, clear, Egypt came under the rule of a very powerful leader. This powerful leader of Egypt was Abdel Nasser. Clear? So Abdel Nasser began to rule over Egypt, and Abdel Nasser is considered to be hero of Arab nationalism. Clear? At this time only, in 1948, Israel was created in the region of Palestine. Since Israel was created in the region of Palestine, it was opposed by all Islamic countries of the Arab world, and Israel was also opposed by Egypt as well, because Egypt was also an Islamic country under Abdel Nasser. Clear? Abdel Nasser became vocal to criticize the creation of Israel, and all Arab leaders began to support Abdel Nasser, and he began to be known as hero of Arab nationalism. Clear? Moreover, Abdel Nasser wanted to develop his country Egypt, and he wanted to construct a large dam on the river Nile. This dam to be constructed on the river Nile, this dam was named by Abdel Nasser as Aswan Dam. So he decided to construct Aswan Dam on the river Nile, and he demanded financial assistance from global institutions like the World Bank, which was established after the Second World War, to provide long-term financial support to member countries. Clear? However, World Bank under United States and under Britain refused to provide assistance to Abdul Nasser. Why? Because Abdul Nasser began to advocate the policy of non-alignment, and he was more tilted towards socialism. Since he was a socialist leader, obviously it was believed that he was inclined towards communism. Therefore, World Bank refused to provide financial assistance to Abdul Nasser. Clear? But at the same time, Soviet Union provided assistance to Abdul Nasser, and with Soviet support, Abdul Nasser constructed a large canal known as Suez Canal, large dam known as Aswan Dam on River Nile. This led to further shift or inclination of Abdul Nasser towards Soviet Union, and now he wanted to eliminate the control of Britain and France over Suez Canal Company, and therefore in 1956 he announced a scheme known as nationalization of Suez Canal. Clear? He wanted, by this scheme of nationalization, he wanted to buy back the shares of Suez Canal from Britain and France. Britain and France realized if they sell the shares of the Suez Canal Company, they may not have control over Suez Canal, and therefore they began to oppose the scheme known as nationalization of Suez Canal. And not only this, Britain, France, along with Israel, collectively decided to attack Egypt. Clear? This led to a severe crisis, and to rescue Egypt, Soviet Union came into picture, and Soviet Union declared, in case any war is declared against Egypt, Soviet Union will have to intervene, and that may result into Third World War. It became a serious crisis at this point of time. United States was not ready for such war, and United States asked Britain, France and Israel to stop aggression against Israel. Since United States decision was accepted by Britain and Suez Canal crisis came to an end, one major implication of this was that it made it clear formally that from here not Britain but United States is the leading power in the world. So US hegemony was properly accepted, and British hegemony finally came to an end that Britain enjoyed since Industrial Revolution of 18th century. So Suez Canal crisis had huge implication for global politics. We'll write about this crisis. Clear? Right. The region of Suez Canal, right? Suez Canal crisis heading. Right. The region of Suez Canal. The region of Suez Canal. The region of Suez Canal. Region of Suez Canal located in Egypt, Africa, located in Egypt, is highly strategic, strategic as it connects the Mediterranean Sea, as it connects the Mediterranean Sea with the Red Sea, as it connects the Mediterranean Sea with the Red Sea, Clear? Right. By the middle of the 19th century, by the middle of the 19th century, the Pasha rulers of Egypt, decided to construct Suez Canal, for regular shipping, Okay. Right. With such objective, the Pasha rulers, with such objective, the Pasha rulers floated The Pasha rulers the Suez Canal Company floated the Suez Canal Company floated the Suez Canal Company in international market in international market in international market international market, right? Right, the maximum number of equity shares were purchased by Britain and France. Purchased were by France, and they became owners of the company. They became the owners of the company. Clear? Right. The Suez Canal, the Suez Canal started started regular shipping regular shipping from 1869, which proved to be highly profitable for Britain and France. Highly profitable for Britain and France. Profitable for Britain and France. Britain, France. Clear? Highly profitable for Britain and France. Britain and France. Britain and France. France. Clear? Right, next. Clear? Britain, France. Change background. Right. After the end of the Second World War, after the end of the Second World War, after the end of the Second World War, end of the Second World War, end of the Second World War, Second World War, Egypt came under the rule, Egypt came under the rule of Abdel Nasser, came under the rule of Abdel Nasser, who was strictly opposed to the creation of, who was strictly opposed to the creation of, Israel, by Western powers. Clear? That at the same time, he began to be accepted as, the hero of Arab nationalism. He began to be accepted as the hero of Arab nationalism, as hero of Arab nationalism, hero of Arab nationalism. Okay. Just because of his opposition to Israel. Change paragraph. Right. Wanted to construct Abdel Nasser wanted to construct Aswan Dam on the river Nile, wanted to construct Aswan Dam on the river Nile, Aswan Dam on the river Nile. Nile for economic development, for economic development, economic development, economic development. Clear? Economic development. Economic, right. He demanded financial assistance. He demanded financial assistance from the World Bank, financial assistance from the World Bank from the World Bank, which was denied under the pressure, which was denied under the pressure of United States and Britain, pressure of United States and Britain, because Abdul Nasser was more inclined towards Abdul Nasser was more inclined towards socialism, ideological divide. Abdul Nasser was more inclined towards socialism. Clear? Socialism. Right. However, Soviet Union provided financial support. Soviet Union provided financial support. Soviet Union provided financial support to Soviet Union provided financial support to Soviet Union provided financial support to financial support to Egypt, Egypt that led to the construction of Aswan Dam, that led to the construction of Aswan Dam. Aswan Dam. Clear? Right. Thereafter, Abdul Nasser announced the scheme. Abdul Nasser announced the scheme of nationalization of Suez Canal, announced the scheme of nationalization of Suez Canal, whereby he decided to buy back the shares. He decided to buy back the shares from Britain and France. Nationalization, complete national control over Suez Canal. Buy back the shares from Britain and France. Okay. Right. The nationalization of Suez Canal. The nationalization of Suez Canal was opposed by Britain and France, was opposed by Britain and France, 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 that led to the Suez Canal crisis in 1956. That led to the Suez Canal crisis in 1956. Suez Canal crisis in 1956. 1956. 1956. Clear? 56. Right. Britain, France, and Israel together. Britain, France, and Israel together Britain, France, and Israel together decided to attack Egypt. Together decided to attack Egypt, Egypt. But Soviet Union came forward. But Soviet Union came forward and adopted a radical stand. Adopted a radical stand. Okay? Right. This created a scenario of another major war. This created the scenario of another major war. Scenario of another major war. This created the scenario of another major war, and United States asked Britain, France and Israel, Israel to stop aggression, to stop aggression. Okay, right. This led to the end of Suez Canal crisis. This led to the end of Suez Canal crisis, but it clearly implied, but it clearly implied, it clearly implied, but it clearly implied that British dominance in global politics, British dominance in global politics has been formally ended. British dominance in global politics has been formally ended. Has been formally ended. Has been formally ended. And US dominance has been accepted. And US dominance has been accepted. US dominance has been accepted. Clear? So, this was Suez Canal crisis, very important crisis that took place. Clear? Another crisis just after some time that took place in the era of Cold War. This was another serious one, and it is known as the Cuban Missile Crisis. 1962. The Cuban Missile Crisis. We'll discuss about the Cuban Missile Crisis. Clear? Before this, we'll discuss about some questions that has been asked. One question from Suman. Sir, Naxalbari, those established their own regime, it's good or bad? And what are similarities and dissimilarity like communist or something? I mean, what type of example it is? Clear? See, again, I'll do. Naxalbari regime that has been established can be interpreted both in terms of good and bad. Clear? In fact, it has got a mixed response from Indian communities and experts. Clear? First of all, I'll let you know, if you look from the state perspective, it is not good, it is rather bad, because obviously Naxalbaris are trying to establish a kind of parallel government on their own that affects the power and sanctity of the state authorities. Clear? So from the perspective of the state, obviously Naxalbari is not good, regime is not good. But if you look from the perspective that is from below, from the masses perspective, it is right, because obviously masses have started to assert themselves strongly and have started to fight for the rights and equality. Clear? So it is basically a two approach. Again I'll let you know. Clear? If you come into Naxalbari regime, one approach is known as the top-down approach. Clear? One approach is known as the top-down approach. Another is known as the bottom-up approach. Clear? Naxalbari regime is wrong from top-down approach. Why? Because from the state perspective, from top's perspective, obviously it affects the sanctity of the state, and therefore from top-down approach it is not a good idea. But when we look from bottom approach, that is from masses perspective, it seems to be good, obviously, because when state machinery has failed to establish equality, the masses have taken up their arms and they have established their own regime marked by equal distribution of resources. Clear? So it is a good idea from bottom approach, but it is not a good idea from top down approach. Clear? So it has resulted into mixed response from scholars and experts related to Naxalbari regime. Clear? Next is, what are similarities and dissimilarities like communist or something? Clear? See, again I'll let you know. Naxalbaris basically are similar to communist variant known as Maoism. Clear? Maoism is a variant of communist ideology whereby it entails radical approach whereby masses has to take up their arms to ensure equality. Clear? So it is a variant of communist ideology. To be more precise, it is influenced by Maoist philosophy that was followed by Mao Zedong in China during the Great March. Clear? So example, it means what type of example it is? Obviously, it's example of communism, the variant of communism known as Maoism. Clear? It's clear, Suman. Now another question from Subhashri. Sir, as past designs the present and present designs the future. We have seen colonialism, then bipolar world to multipolar world. Is it cyclical in nature that in distant future world can see some more sort of colonialism again? Yeah, because it's right. Very good analysis by Subhashri. Clear? In fact, the past shapes the present and present in turn shapes the future. There's no doubt about it. And she is also mentioning that by colonialism led to bipolar world order in Cold War, and after bipolar it became unipolar, and now from unipolarity we are moving towards multipolarity. Clear? At the same time, it said that it is cyclical in nature. Yeah, history is a cycle that keeps on repeating. Clear? We may witness colonialism, we are witnessing colonialism, and the new form of colonialism which we are witnessing is known as neo-colonialism, whereby according to neo-colonialism, proxy control is being exercised by one country over another country. So we will not see colonialism again. We are seeing colonialism in fact, yeah, because major countries through multinational corporations are dominating the smaller countries in the market, and they have shifted the test of the people towards multinational products. Clear? So it is a kind of proxy control whereby now colonies are not only suppliers of raw materials but consumers of finished products also, and therefore colonies are providing the markets also. Clear? So it is a kind of proxy control through economic resources, and this is known as neo-colonialism, which is presently happening in all across the world. So it will not happen, it is happening. You are right, Subhashri. Clear? This analysis is perfectly fine. Is it clear? Now coming to the Cuban Missile Crisis. Now Cuban Missile, just understand. First of all, we'll understand this through map also. We'll look into Cuban Missile Crisis. Clear? Cuban Missile Crisis map. Okay, fine. Now look into this map. Now look into Cuban Missile Crisis. Clear? And from this year only. Clear? Cuban Missile Crisis. This is Cuba, Havana, the capital. Then we have United States, not far away from the region of Florida and the region. Clear? The threat of Cuban Missile Crisis. Now, what happened exactly here in this region? Clear? See, first of all, we had discussed that with the beginning of Cold War, United States and capitalist countries established their own military regime known as NATO, that is North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which came into being in 1949. And to counter NATO only, the communist countries established the Warsaw Pact in 1955. Thereafter, all capitalist countries began to target Soviet Union, and they began to place missiles targeting the major locations of Soviet Union. But Soviet Union could not depute any missiles in any part targeting the major locations of United States. Clear? In 1959, Cuba came into picture, which is located just toward the south of the United States. Clear? Barely 150 kilometers away. Clear? From the southern coast. Clear? In 1959, Cuba faced a revolution known as Cuban Revolution. Clear? And in this Cuban Revolution, the communist leader emerged to be victorious. This communist leader was named as Fidel Castro. Clear? Even though United States tried to stop this revolution, but this revolution proved to be successful, and Fidel Castro emerged as dictator of Cuba as a communist leader. Clear? So Fidel Castro became the leader of Cuba or dictator of Cuba. Clear? And Fidel Castro began to dominate this region. So he became the dictator of Cuba as a result of Cuban Revolution in 1959. Since he was opposed by United States continuously, Fidel Castro began to get more inclined towards Soviet Union, and Fidel Castro invited Soviet Union to place its missiles over Cuban territory so that it could target the major locations of United States. So look into the radius also that was covered by the missiles placed in the region of Cuba. Clear? It covered even Washington DC, it covered even New York, it even covered Boston, all major cities. Clear? At this time, Cuba began to place large number of missiles on its territory with support of Soviet Union, and Soviet Union began to target the major locations of United States. However, United States through aerial surveillance came to know about the US Soviet missiles in Cuba, and so United States immediately decided to attack Cuba. This resulted into Cuban crisis in 1962, and it was made clear that United States will attack Cuba at any time. Soviet Union realized it may result into a major war once again. Soviet Union agreed to recall back its missiles from Cuba, provided Cuba was not attacked by United States. United States accepted this condition, and Soviet missiles were dismantled and recalled to Soviet Union, and Cuban Missile Crisis was averted. That brought the two superpowers against each other in Cold War. This was another crisis that took place in 1962, known as Cuban Missile Crisis. Clear? Right, introduction first. Clear? Right, the country of Cuba. The country of Cuba is located. The country of Cuba is located towards the south of United States, towards the south of United States, south of United States, south of United States, between the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic Ocean, between the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic Ocean, Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic Ocean, Atlantic Ocean. Clear? Right. Cuba witnessed, Cuba witnessed, witnessed a severe revolution. Cuba witnessed a severe revolution in 1959, 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 revolution in 1959, 59, which led to the rise of a communist leader, led to the rise of communist leader Fidel Castro, communist leader Fidel Castro as dictator, Fidel Castro as dictator, Fidel Castro as dictator, clear? Right. United States continued to oppose Fidel Castro. United States continued to oppose Fidel Castro, Fidel Castro, Fidel Castro, Castro, and Cuba, Cuba got more inclined towards the Soviet Union, more inclined towards the Soviet Union, towards the Soviet Union. Clear? Right. Fidel Castro invited Fidel Castro invited Fidel Castro invited Soviet Union Soviet Union to place its missiles in Cuba, targeting the major locations of United States. It's very close to United States, targeting the major locations of United States. Clear, right? Soviet Union installed. Soviet Union installed. Soviet Union installed several. Soviet Union installed several ballistic missiles. Several ballistic missiles. Several ballistic missiles. Several ballistic missiles targeting the cities of Washington DC, targeting the cities of Washington DC, Boston, New York, targeting the major cities like Washington DC, Boston and New York. Boston and New York. New York. Clear? Change paragraph. Right. Through aerial surveillance, aerial monitoring, through aerial surveillance, through aerial surveillance, through aerial surveillance, aerial surveillance, through aerial surveillance, surveillance, United States came to know United States came to know about Soviet missiles, in Cuba, Soviet missiles in Cuba, and started to create, look into this, and started to create, create naval blockade. They began to surround Cuba. It started to create naval blockade. Naval blockade against Cuba. Naval blockade against Cuba. That led to the Cuban Missile Crisis. That led to the Cuban Missile Crisis. That led to the Cuban Missile Crisis. Cuban Missile Crisis. Clear? Cuban Missile. Right. However, Soviet Union recalled back its missiles. Soviet Union recalled back its missiles. That ended the Cuban Missile Crisis. Which brought the world on the verge of another major war. Which brought the world on the verge of another major war. This is Cuban Missile Crisis. Clear? Very important development. Clear? Now, just understand. Clear? When all these developments were taking place, meanwhile, under capitalist philosophy, the Western European countries and other countries began to develop at a rapid pace. But at the same time, clear, all the countries under communist bloc, they could not develop at a rapid pace. Rather, they began to lag behind in the process of economic growth and development. Clear? This affected the communist bloc in the long run, and therefore by the end of 20th century, a very prominent person became the president of Soviet Union. This leader was Mikhail Gorbachev, and Mikhail Gorbachev decided to accelerate the process of economic growth through several series of reforms in Soviet Union and communist countries. Clear? We'll come to the reforms introduced by Mikhail Gorbachev. Clear? First of all, we'll take these questions. Clear? Next question is, clear? Sir, the term neocolonialism and proxy colonialism. Clear, sir? Got the term neocolonialism and proxy colonialism. Fine. Clear? Next question is from Vishwajit. Sir, is not Agniveer is a threat for society? Our unemployment increased day by day, and if public trend by arm, it creates insurgent group. Obviously, clear, the schemes like Agniveer has again got a mixed response from different sections. Some are appreciating and some are critical also about the Agniveer scheme. And obviously, unemployment which is being increasing on continuously, it is a threat, clear, and it may amount to a kind of insurgency in our country. No doubt, clear, it may result into insurgency group and it's a kind of threat to our country. Clear. Next question is from Parth. Was there any role of Soviet Union Socialist Revolution Cuba? Yeah, Socialist Revolution Cuba was largely sponsored by Soviet Union. In fact, Soviet Union gave support to Fidel Castro, and that is why Socialist Revolution became successful even against the wishes of United States. Clear. Next is, sir, how Parth, clear. Now questions from Anand. Sir, how parallel government differs from any dispensation of military or militia or militant or terrorist or Naxalism, or sir, why newspaper writes that a militant other than terrorist? Anand, clear? See, I'll let you know. First of all, clear? There's a difference that needs to be understood here. I'll let you know. First of all, you are mentioning about three terms. Sir, how parallel government differs from any dispensation of military or militia or militant or terrorist or Naxalism, and why newspaper writes that a militant rather than terrorist? Clear? See, first of all, I'll let you know there's a difference. Clear? One term is known as the term as moderates. Clear? Beyond moderates, there is another term known as militant. And third term is known as terrorist. You are using the three terms. So we'll emphasize on these terms. Clear? Terrorist. Clear? Moderates means that common people, clear? Common people who goes with government programs, who goes supports government agencies, they are known as moderates. Clear? At the same time, when moderates, clear, they start to protest against the government policies. They come on roads, clear, and they start peaceful protest demonstration against government policies. Then they are known as militant nationalists. Clear? In modern history, also national media must have read about moderates and extremists. Clear? Who were extremists? Extremists were basically militant nationalists who believed in mass agitation, peaceful protest demonstration to get their demands accepted. Clear? So moderates is differentiated from militant even now. The people who believe in mass action, protest demonstration on peaceful lines to get their demands accepted. Clear? But militants is totally different from terrorists because terrorism believes in violence. Clear? So militants does not believe in violent act. Terrorists believes in violent act. Clear? And therefore they are largely violent and fundamentalist in approach who want to get the demands injected forcefully. Clear? So there's a clear-cut difference between moderates and militant and terrorists. Clear? Now newspaper writes militants because those militants are people who believe in mass demonstration or protest demonstration. We use the term militancy separately as insurgency. Clear? Militancy is something supported by foreign countries. Clear? But here, when we use the term militant in general parlance, what do we mean? Common masses who have come on the streets to protest against any government policies, they are known as militants. Clear? So newspapers normally use the term militant to show radical masses protesting against government schemes and policies. It's clear. Clear. It's clear, Anand. Clear. No, apart from this, clear. Now we'll move on to discuss about another major development in the era of Cold War, and that major development was in Soviet Union only. Clear? Now, but this was largely because the pace of economic development in communist countries was much less than the pace of development in the capitalist countries. Clear? Right, right, next paragraph. Right, in the face of the Cold War, in the face of the Cold War, phase of the Cold War. In the phase of the Cold War, the countries under capitalist ideology, the countries under capitalist ideology, began to develop rapidly, rapidly, in contrast to the countries under communist bloc, under communist bloc, under communist bloc, clear? Right? In order to accelerate, in order to accelerate the rate of economic growth, in order to accelerate the rate of economic growth, accelerate the rate of economic growth. Series of reforms were introduced. Series of reforms were introduced. Reforms were introduced by Soviet President, introduced by Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev. Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev. Clear? Mikhail Gorbachev. Right. In the year 1985. In the year 1985, 85. Series of reforms were introduced. Series of reforms were introduced, which were which were which were termed as which were termed as perestroika and glasnost, which were termed as perestroika and glasnost, perestroika and glasnost. Clear? Right. The term perestroika, the term perestroika implied, the term perestroika implied the restructuring of communist economy, implied the restructuring of the communist economy, restructuring of the communist economy, and the term glasnost, implied, and the term glasnost implied opening of the economy through liberal approach, opening up the of economy through liberal approach, through liberal approach, liberal approach, economy through liberal approach. Clear? Right. However, the series of reforms, however, the series of reforms were introduced. The series of reforms were introduced simultaneously. The series of reforms were introduced simultaneously that resulted into rapid changes, and it even slipped from the hands of, and it even slipped, SLIPD, slipped from the hands of Mikhail Gorbachev, hands of Mikhail Gorbachev, Okay, right, several Central Asian republics who had joined Russia to be known as Soviet Union. Several Central Asian republics realized several Central Asian republics realized that central leadership has failed. Realized that central leadership has failed. Central leadership has failed. Leadership has failed. Realize that central leadership has failed. Leadership has failed. Okay, failed. Right, from 1989, the Central Asian republics, from 1989, the Central Asian republics began to, the Central Asian republics began to assert their independence, began to assert their independence, which resulted into which resulted into decline and disintegration, of Soviet Union. Decline and disintegration 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 of Soviet Union. Clear. We can be understood from here. Collapse of Soviet Union, Lithuania, Ukraine, Georgia, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, all these countries walked away. Clear. Decline Soviet Union. Right. Within 2 years, within 2 years, within 2 years, 2 years, Soviet Union collapsed. Within 2 years, Soviet Union collapsed, and by 1991, several countries, by 1991, several countries like Ukraine, several countries like Ukraine, Armenia, several countries like Ukraine, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Ukraine, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, and Kazakhstan, and Kazakhstan, etc. Kazakhstan, etc. got liberated, got liberated, liberated. Change paragraph. Right. With decline and disintegration, with decline and disintegration of the Soviet Union, bloc politics came to an end. Bloc politics came to an end. Bloc politics came to an end, which even ended the Cold War. Which even ended the Cold War. Even ended the Cold War. Even ended the Cold War. Clear? Right. With the end of Cold War, with the end of Cold War, the bipolar world order, the bipolar world order, bipolar world order got transformed into the unipolar world order, transformed into unipolar, single pole, unipolar world order dominated by United States, dominated by United States. Clear? United States. Now, with this, the world history comes to an end in 1991, because from here we start with international relations, all major developments. Clear? In fact, we start international relations after the Second World War only, but this was basically the Cold War era that ended in 1991, that transformed the world from bipolar world order to unipolar world order dominated by United States. Clear? This was about world history. Now, there's a one question, clear? Sir, why Vietnam War is important? I'll let you know one important thing, clear? Like the Korean crisis, there was another crisis that took place known as the Vietnam crisis as well. Clear? Why Vietnam? Why like Korean crisis? In Korean crisis, we had discussed the people in the northern part of Korea supported communist ideology. The people in southern part of Korea supported capitalist ideology, and that resulted into huge crisis. Similarly, in the era of Cold War, Vietnam, located in Southeast Asia, even though being small country, became very prominent. Clear, the people in northern part of Vietnam, they supported communist ideology. The people in the southern part of Vietnam, they supported capitalist ideology. Clear, and just because of this, like Korea, even Vietnam was divided into two independent countries along an artificial boundary, and this artificial boundary is known as the 17th parallel. Clear? So 17th parallel divided North Vietnam into South Vietnam. In South Vietnam, the capitalist regime was established. In North Vietnam, the communist regime survived. Clear? And in North Vietnam, when communist regime survived, this communist regime in North Vietnam was led by a very prominent leader, Ho Chi Minh. Clear? So Ho Chi Minh was the leader of North Vietnam. Clear? At this time, United States decided to take action against the communist regime of North Vietnam, and United States attacked North Vietnam in 1967, leading to Vietnam War. Clear? And in this Vietnam War, the most important thing is the communist leaders of North Vietnam defeated the forces of United States. It was a big setback for United States at this time, and communist regime of North Vietnam survived. And thereafter, North Vietnam and South Vietnam combined together, and a unified country of Vietnam got created. Clear? So this became a very important development that resulted into the establishment of Vietnam as a truly independent country. Clear? We don't have the map of Vietnam. Clear? Look into Vietnam map. Clear? So this was Hanoi. Clear? This was Vietnam. Clear? North and South Vietnam. This is Vietnam. Clear? Northern and southern part of Vietnam, South China Sea, and in this Vietnam only the war was fought. Clear? So Vietnam, city of Vietnam. Ho Chi Minh is a city also named Ho Chi Minh. Clear? Right? You want to write about Vietnam War? Clear? Not an important one, but an important thing is that it was basically an important development in the era of Cold War. Is it clear? The Vietnam War. Why Vietnam War is important? Do you want to write about Vietnam War? Write about Vietnam War as well. Clear? So, write about Vietnam War as well. Clear? Vietnam War. Clear? Write introduction first. Write heading as Vietnam War. Clear? Right. In the era of Cold War, in the era of Cold War, in the era of Cold War, Vietnam, in the era of Cold War, became Vietnam became Vietnam became an important region. Vietnam became an important region. Vietnam became an important region, an important region because the people in North Vietnam, the people in North Vietnam supported communist philosophy. The people in North Vietnam supported communist philosophy, whereas the people in South Vietnam, the people in South Vietnam supported the capitalist ideology, supported the capitalist ideology, capitalist ideology. Clear? Right. Such differences, such differences led to, such differences led to the division of Vietnam, led to the division of Vietnam along 17th parallel, division of Vietnam along 17th parallel. Clear? Right, parallel. Right. United States decided to take action. United States decided to take action against the communist regime of North Vietnam, against the communist regime of North Vietnam, led by Ho Chi Minh, very important leader, led by led by Ho Chi Minh, communist leader Ho Chi Minh. Clear? Right. United States attacked Vietnam in 1967, attacked Vietnam in 1967, leading to the Vietnam War, leading to the Vietnam War. Okay, right. In this clash, communist members, in this clash, the communist members followed the guerrilla strategy and defeated the forces of United States. United States. Clear? Right. It was a big setback. It was a big setback. It was a big setback for United States. Setback for United States in the era of Cold War. In the era of Cold War. Okay. Right. Next paragraph. After Vietnam War, the northern and southern parts got unified. The northern and the southern parts got unified, and 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 the city of Saigon, Saigon, and the city of Saigon, and the city, all right, and the city of Saigon, and the city of Saigon was was renamed as Ho Chi Minh City, was renamed as Ho Chi Minh City to show respect to the great leader of Vietnam, to the great leader of Vietnam. This was Vietnam War. Guerrilla strategy, defeat of US forces. It's clear? No. Question from Vietnam War we had discussed Spandan. Now coming to other questions. There are many questions. Okay, fine. So yes sir, got what you have said, but my question was parallel government का फंडा क्या है? From earlier mentioned. Clear? See, parallel government, Anand, I'll let you know. Clear? What exactly do we mean by the concept of parallel government? What do you mean by the concept of parallel government? Clear? See, the concept of parallel government is that if there is already a government that is existing but may not be acceptable to the people at large, clear, then apart from existing government, the local people on their own, if they start their own system of governance, clear, by establishing their own local government, then this local government which was established along with the existing government, it is known as parallel government. Why? Two governments go side by side. Clear? So parallel government is a concept whereby apart from existing government, when local people and local leaders, they establishes their own system of law and order and they manage their own affairs on their own, it is known as parallel government. So two set of governments existing simultaneously. One is the formal government, another is the informal government. Then the two governments are known as parallel governments. Best example I'll let you know. You must have read in modern history about Quit India movement, and during Quit India movement, when British regime was dislodged temporarily, several local governments were formed or parallel governments were formed. Parallel governments were formed in Bengal also, clear, in the region of Tamluk. Tamluk is located in Midnapur region where parallel government was established, also known as Jatiya Sarkar. Other parallel governments were established at Satara in Maharashtra and Balia in eastern Uttar Pradesh. Clear? So parallel government means government established by local people and local leaders along with the existing government, that is the formal government. This is the term of parallel government. It's clear the funda of parallel government, Anand. Please revert back. You have asked this question twice, so please revert back. Is the concept clear of parallel government? Next is, sir, is Libya Palestine war not a part of Cold War? Libya Palestine war? Vishwajit, just be clear. Israel Palestine war can be there, not Libya. Libya Palestine war? No, not as such. Please, please ask the question, reformat the question again. Is was Palestine conflict war? Israel Palestine conflict. Clear? Israel Palestine conflict is not largely because of Cold War. Israel Palestine conflict because of religious issue. Israel being Jewish country and Palestine being Islamic country. Clear? What is Islamophobia? See, the concept of Islamophobia emerged especially from 2001 after terrorist attack on the United States, whereby the Islamic religion was began to perceived as a radical religion, and that created a sense of intimidation among people related to Islamic faith. This sense of intimidation towards Islamic faith is known as Islamophobia. This concept of Islamophobia became a worldwide phenomena after US attack in 2001. Sir, in how many countries USSR broke? USSR broke out into 15 countries apart from the Russian Federation. 15 countries separated from Russia, and that marked the breakup of United Soviet Union. So Russia became another country and 15 Central Asian republics and other countries brought independent from Russian Federation. Sir, please discuss briefly about Afghan war and the rise of Mujahideen and how it facilitates the disintegration of USSR. We'll come to that international relations. Clear? We'll discuss about the Afghan war also, and at the same time the role of Taliban or the role of Al Qaeda also, Mujahideen also in the disintegration of USSR. But I'll let you know briefly here. Do understand? Clear? First of all, Afghanistan is a country located in Central Asia, not far away from Soviet Union. You will understand much better through map also. Clear? We'll come to the map. Clear? Now look into map of Central Asia. Then you can understand things properly. Clear? This would be the right one. We'll take this map. Just look into this map, Central Asia, clear? Central Asia, clear? This is Kazakhstan, Caspian Sea, Baku, then we have Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan. Adjoining country we have China, then Pakistan, then even India. And here in West Asia we have Iran, Iraq, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Georgia. Clear? Now this is about Central Asia, the largest country being Kazakhstan. Clear? Now these are very prominent countries. Now just understand, clear? Afghanistan is located here, and Afghanistan far away from the region of Central Asia. In fact, it is a part of Central Asia, not far away from Russia at the time. Clear? At this time, all these countries were members of Soviet Union. That is Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan. All these were part of Soviet Union. Afghanistan was not directly connected. Clear? At the same time, Afghanistan became very important because Soviet Union attacked Afghanistan in 1979. And when Soviet Union attacked Afghanistan in 1979, people of Afghanistan retaliated very strongly, and due to Soviet occupation of Afghanistan in 1979, groups like Al Mujahideen was formed in Afghanistan. Clear? When groups like Al Mujahideen was formed in Afghanistan, clear, these people began to retaliate against Soviet occupation. Clear? This sentiment which was against Soviet Union among the people of Al Mujahideen was very well utilized by United States to create disturbances in Central Asia, which was a part of Soviet Union. Clear? Thereafter only United States began to train large number of Al Mujahideen. Clear? And from Al Mujahideen only a terrorist group began to emerge. Clear? This terrorist group that began to emerge from Al Mujahideen was known as Al Qaeda group. So from Al Mujahideen, an insurgency group emerged known as Taliban, and a terrorist group emerged known as Al Qaeda. Clear? And large number of leaders of Al Qaeda began to be provided with military training by United States, and one among them was Osama bin Laden. Clear? And Osama bin Laden was supported by United States, and United States began to declare that Afghanistan has been forcefully occupied by Soviet Union, and therefore all members of Al Qaeda began to create problems for Soviet Union. When huge amount of military forces or members of Al Qaeda began to create disturbances in Central Asian region, clear, it became a major factor for disintegration of Soviet Union, because when the schemes or reforms of Mikhail Gorbachev failed, these Central Asian republics began to declare that Soviet leadership has failed, and they easily began to walk away from Soviet Union, in which the triggering effect was created by Afghanistan, and from Afghanistan the triggering effect was created by Al Qaeda. Clear? And therefore it contributed towards disintegration of Soviet Union. But when Soviet Union got declined and disintegrated, even United States, they started to maintain distance from Al Qaeda group, and therefore Osama bin Laden and Al Qaeda in Afghanistan realized they were just used by United States to decline and disintegrate Soviet Union, and therefore Al Qaeda decided to retaliate against United States. And exactly after 10 years, in 2001, Al Qaeda led a terrorist attack on United States that happened in September 2001, and that changed the whole global politics thereafter, that even resulted into phenomena of Islamophobia all across the world. Clear? So in this way, clear, Al Mujahideen contributed towards decline and disintegration of Soviet Union. So it's clear that Afghan War, 1979, Afghanistan was occupied by Soviet Union, and that marked the rise of Al Mujahideen, and with Al Mujahideen only Al Qaeda emerged as a terrorist group that contributed towards disintegration of USSR. It's clear part, clear. Next question from Tista. So did fundamentalists rise in Iran in 1979 had anything to do with the Cold War? Not exactly. Iran witnessed Islamic revolution in 1979, and as a result of Islamic revolution only, the rule of Khomeini's came to an end. Clear? And thereafter, the rule of Shahs came to an end, and Khomeini came to power, and from here, Iran started to emerge Islamic fundamentalist country. Clear? So from 1979, after Islamic revolution, Iran turned out to be a hardcore Islamic country, and when Iran turned out to be a hardcore Islamic country, it began to oppose United States. Obviously, it resulted into serious differences between Iran on the one hand and United States on the other hand. But it was not directly because of Cold War politics. It was because of Islamic Revolution in Iran in 1979. Clear? It's clear. Next, and after 1979 only, the war started between Iran and Iraq, known as the Gulf War, that continued for 10 years from 1979 till 1989. Next is Nelson Mandela and South African independence and India's perspective, sir. So Nelson Mandela started a struggle against racial discrimination, which was followed by white minority government in South Africa. Clear? So white minority government in South Africa discriminated against large number of native African people, and Nelson Mandela started to fight against racial equality. He established a political party known as African National Congress in 1951, and African National Congress began to fight for racial equality. Clear? Even Mahatma Gandhi contributed significantly to fight for racial equality, and ultimately due to the efforts of Nelson Mandela, clear, the policy of apartheid or racial discrimination was abolished in South Africa in 1994, and that South Africa became a truly independent country under Nelson Mandela. Clear? Yes, sir, Israel-Palestine war, Vishwajit. We'll come to Israel-Palestine war. It's a very important issue in international politics. We'll come to Israel-Palestine war in global politics. Don't worry about that, Vishwajit. Clear? Yes, sir, clear. Thank you so much. Does it exist in Myanmar also? Thank you, sir. Yeah, in Myanmar also, it's an insurgency group that exists in Myanmar, and that always lead to regime change. Clear? Thanks, got it. Sir, African state chopped artificially is the reason for various conflict in the African tribes? Yeah. Because when European powers went to Africa, African people could not resist them, and therefore European powers divided African continent according to their own whims and fancies, and that is known as chopping of Africa, that is known as scramble for Africa. And just because scramble of Africa was done by the whims and fancies of Europeans without caring for the diversity of tribes in Africa, it has resulted into several ethnic conflicts in African continent till contemporary times. It's also known as chopping of Africa, scramble for Africa. It's clear, chopping. Clear, sir. Tista, clear, sir. Path. Okay, fine. So, yeah, these questions are important. Keep on asking questions because obviously questions help to understand things in a much better perspective. So, this was all about world history. Clear. And all these topics were to be discussed under world history. So, we have completed the topic of world history, because world history ends with the end of Cold War in 1991. Clear? In fact, all these issues that we had discussed, that is Soviet occupation of Afghanistan and other issues, and even Al-Qaeda, will be discussing in international relations. In fact, international relations is a continuity of world history only. So, as a continuity, we'll start with international relations along with India's foreign policy. It's clear? All the questions, okay, very clear, quality questions. Thank you so much. So we'll take a break for an hour. We'll start again at 2 o'clock, and from 2 o'clock in the next session, we'll start with India's foreign policy and international relations. Clear? We'll have a break for 1 hour. Thank you.